Hey, everybody. Chris Miles here. So excited to have you join us today. I know some of you guys are starting to jump on live right now. And so definitely excited to have you here. As we're getting started, love to hear from you, from those that are starting to see what's going on right now. Go ahead and type, and you don't even have to type in the whole thing, but just type hi. Just let me know that you're seeing me, you can hear me, everything's good. Go ahead and just put that in the comments so I know everything's working here and it's not just me talking to myself or pantomiming or whatever I might be doing here. So yeah, love to hear from you, hear your comments. Okay. Now I know we got more of you coming in, whether you're from Facebook, you're coming from LinkedIn. I know we even got YouTube, I think, coming in live as well. Leslie, how you doing? Good to see. I was going to say good to see you, but good to see your comment at least through YouTube there. Definitely. Yep, we got some hellos coming in as well. So awesome. Good to see you. Go ahead and put in now where you're from. I'd like to hear like where you guys tuning in from, like which state. If you're in the United States, if you're outside the United States, just tell us why you think the United States is best. No, I'm just kidding. I just want to sound like I'm the typical American here. That's egotistical. So no, just go ahead and type in what state you're coming in from, or if you're out of the country, let us know which country you're coming from as well. Love to hear that. All right, start to see some chats going in. We got Big Sky, Montana. Yes, beautiful. Love it. Okay, guys. So I'm not even going to just mince words a little bit. I like things to be short and sweet. If you've listened to my podcast, the Money Ripples podcast, or watched it, you know, I like to get right to the point. And this is no different, right? Because there's no doubt right now that something's not adding up. There's a lot of things going on in the world today that kind of makes us question, are we in a recession or not? We have politicians saying, no, we're not. We're not in a recession. Even the Fed say that. Yet a lot of things are keep pointing towards everything's slowing down or even just coming to a screeching halt, right? And you even have, Facebook, Meta, right? You even have them talking about, they just have their third round of layoffs going on. All these things are going on here. We've got, Tesla's rockets blowing up, right? Or SpaceX going crazy, I mean, that's not part of it, right? Jim, welcome from Texas. Good to see you here. So we got all this chaos starting to happen right now. We got bank failures, and they say, "Oh, that's just a one-off event. It's not going to happen again." And then we start to question. Anybody who has, actually has their brain turned on for a little bit will realize, wait a minute, something doesn't seem right here. It feels like everybody's trying to calm us down to say nothing's wrong, yet it is, right? Like there's something going on. It's kind of like if you ever guys ever seen the Netflix movie Don't Look Up, right? It's like, don't you dare look up in the sky. Nope, there's nothing coming, there's no earth, destroying meteor coming to destroy this planet or nothing. You're like, no, don't even look up in the sky. I don't care what you see. It's not real. It's fake. And they put on in the media, right? And that's just not the case, right? We know that there's something going on and we know something's up. The question is what? What is really going on here? So that's what I really want to dig into is not just what are we seeing? What's going on? But more importantly, regardless of what they all say in the media, regardless of whether it's a recession or depression potentially or not, what are we going to do about it, right? How do we make ourselves bulletproof at this period of time? How do we really ensure that we not only protect our wealth, but make more of it? Understand that Joseph Kennedy, who's the father of John F. Kennedy, many people don't realize that aside from being a bootlegger in the 1920s, right, which got his net worth up to $4 million, after that, when the Great Depression happened, he started buying up a ton of commercial real estate to the point where he went from 4 million in 1929 of net worth to 180 million in 1935, just 6 short years later. Now, we always hear the stories about the Great Depression. We watch movies like Seabiscuit, right, or Cinderella Man, and we hear about how horrible it was. But the truth is, it was only horrible for about a third of the country, which is still a large, large percentage, right? We had like about 20% unemployment. It was a hard time. A third of people went into a worse financial position. Another third just tightened the belt and just try to maintain, while another third, give or take, they actually became wealthier during the Great Depression. So not only how can we protect ourselves from getting our butts kicked, but how do we also prosper during this period of time? This is kind of what I refer to as not like becoming recession resistant, but instead recession prosperous, right? How do we get that recession prosperity from this point here? So anyways, that's what I really want to get into today. So I'm going to start kind of going in my PowerPoint here with this. And just because you see a PowerPoint, don't freak out. I'm not the kind of person to do, big, hard PowerPoints. Trust me, if there's questions or comments, type them in. I won't be able to see them yet, but there will be a section here. I'll go back to asking questions. Okay. But I really want to just kind of dig into what this really is. Now, if you don't know who I am, and I know many of you guys do, if you've known me from social media, from Facebook, or maybe know a little bit about me, but not really. I live in Utah still. I know some people wonder if I live outside because I post more pictures when I leave Utah than I do inside. But yes, I do live in Utah most of the year, but we snowbird in the wintertime. And so that was one of the terms that my wife put on me 6.5 years ago when we got married, or actually really 7 years ago when we got engaged. She said, Chris, I can't do another Utah winter. I'm a Florida, I'm a Venezuelan Florida girl. I can't do this. We got to leave. And so every winter we go somewhere different. One of the blessings that we've had where I've, as you see here, been financially independent twice by the time I was 39. First time I was financially independent, 2006, when I was 28 years old. Did great there. And then 2007, 2008, I got lazy. I violated the very things I'm going to teach you today that kicked my butt in the last recession. So I actually went over $1 million in debt, had to dig out of that hole, didn't file for bankruptcy. I know Johnny Kvartfort's on here right now. He was actually here during that time when I was rebuilding. And so shout out to Johnny here because he was there during those times when I was trying to dig out of that $1 million debt hole. But I was able to become financially independent for the second time in 2016 when I was 39, just right after my wife and I got married. And so that's kind of where I've been, where I'm work optional. I work because I want to, not because I have to. And really, Money Ripples exists because there's such a mission, a vision that we have. We want 1,000 people financially independent by the year 2030. That means, we want people that have enough passive income coming in that pays all their expenses. And then from that point, they can work, they can not work, they can do whatever they want, but you're work optional. And that's really isn't that kind of the key thing we want to do, right? Like, isn't that what we want in our life? We want more time freedom, not just money freedom, but time freedom, opportunity, because really cash flow creates freedom, doesn't it? And so that's what we do. On the business side, we do cash flow consulting, and we talk about also infinite banking, getting your money to pay you twice. I'm not going to put a lot of focus on that today. I have another presentation I'm doing live actually in Salt Lake City, or just south of Salt Lake City here in a few weeks. But really, I'm focused here on becoming recession resistant and really make sure that this works. Now, sometimes you might see my posts. I talked about sometimes where we showed a client how to create another 19,000 a month by 2022. Here we are. Now we're past 2022 at this point. Also, we've had people that we've had on our podcast. We watch our podcast. We've seen several people. Some are financially independent. Some are on their way. We had Dan Marker, and we'll have a little shout out to him. I mean, he got to the point where he had over 11,000 a month coming in passive income versus just 3,000 that his financial advisor is trying to do for him. And so we will often do that. But I'll tell you, the real inspiration for today is my dad, right? And I don't know if he's even watching this. He uses social media on a very rare occasion, but he really inspired me as a kid because, he taught me good values of growing up. He taught me to work hard, to be honest, to have integrity, to do what I say when I say I'm going to do it. He taught me a lot of those things. But the one thing with money is all he taught me was really about save. Just save, save, save. Don't get into debt. In fact, I thought if you had any debt, you got in trouble. That's how debt scared I was growing up, especially as going into my college years and into adulthood. And so anyways, but I mean, he didn't really know much about money. It was really about scarcity of money. He was that tightwad, right? Like he was, it was so tight that you could seriously stick a jawbreaker up his butt and a lollipop would come out. Like it was, there it is, right? I mean, he's so cheap that you hear birds go cheep, cheep. No, I'm just kidding. That's a horrible joke, I know. But the truth is, like, you look up tightwad in the dictionary, and there's my dad holding on to his wallet. Like that's how bad it was. Okay, and so he was always about trying not to spend anything, save everything. He still spent some money when it counted. He spent it, but he didn't want to spend that money. So he was good about saving. He was like Dave Ramsey's older brother that Dave Ramsey looked up to, and so he taught me that growing up. And but the thing is, he'd always say things like, "I can't afford, we can't afford this, right? What do you think I am made of money? Money doesn't grow on trees, all those kind of phrases. Maybe you've heard that before. If you have parents that are like that said, "Hey, money doesn't grow on trees. We can't afford this," type in the chat. Like, let me know unless I'm alone here. But that's the kind of lower to middle class lifestyle that I grew up with, And so, heck, I even spent 5 years in a trailer park after my parents divorced. It was awesome, I was in the double wide, so it was the fancy trailer. So in any case, that's the thing is like I was taught that growing up, and that influenced me. That influenced me to where I vowed I never wanted to be like that. I never want to be in a place where I would say things where I'd say something like what my dad would say, which is my job would kill me. Right? Like that work would literally kill me from heart attacks. He had heart attacks and strokes even by the time he was in his 40s, even my age right now. So I didn't want to be that way. So when I became an adult, my first impression as I went to college was to go into business consulting. But I thought I shouldn't I have real life business experience if I'm going to teach people how to do stuff in their business. So I actually took a break from college. I was planning to go back and get my MBA, but I wanted to get some real life experience to go on my resume. Well, as I did that, I'm trying to find the right business. The one that perked my interest the most was actually a financial advisor because I thought, hey, if I can learn about money, this would be great for me because I would like to learn, but even better, maybe this will help my dad. Maybe it'll give him some of his life back where he won't work until he's dead. So I went into that business and actually enjoyed being my own entrepreneur. I enjoyed that freedom and that ability to control my time and my money and that kind of thing. So I actually dropped out of college, never went back to finish my sociology degree with a triple minor in ballroom dancing, sociology, and psychology. Totally another story there. But like I actually went to go into this business. And just a few years later, my dad asked me to sit down with him as his financial advisor. So he's 61 years old. I fly to Oregon, I sit down at his table, and same kitchen table he was giving me advice from, right? And then I'm sitting down looking at his finances and everything's there. And he said, okay, Chris, what can I do? Y2K wasn't pretty on my retirement account, but I've got my 401k. I've been saving up. I paid off my debt. I'm debt free. My house was paid off in 18 years. He was so proud of that. What can I do now? And I looked at it and I said, Dad, sadly, unfortunately, you better hope you die in 5 years because that's how much money you have to live on if you weren't for Social Security, which he was not supposed to qualify for yet. He said, all right, well, what's the answer? What can I do? What more can I do here? And I said, I don't know. You did everything right. You did everything that I would teach as a financial advisor. And if I try to put you in these different programs or products, who's to say the stock market's not going to tank, which a few years later, it actually did. This was 2005. 2007 was just around the corner, right? And so I was like, I don't know. I can't promise that it's going to work. And that bugged me. And it bugged me so bad that a few weeks later, I'm talking to a friend who's doing real estate investing and we're arguing. I'm telling like, oh, stocks are better. Cause he was telling me that him and his dad were financially free. Like his dad doubled his income as a professor at the local university. I was like, you can't do that in a matter of months. It takes years to get there. I know because I sat down with his dad trying to sell him as a financial advisor. That was the problem. My friend said, he's like, Chris, listen, how many of your clients are financially free where they don't worry about money? And as I thought, even about the clients that had been retired for a while, there were like doctors and people like that. I said, well, they're still worried about money. They watch CNN, so everybody worries about money. Okay, Chris. Well, good job. Nobody's retiring yet, or nobody's really feeling free. But how about this, Chris? How about you guys as financial advisors? How many of you are financially free? Not off the commissions you're earning, but actually doing these investments, these mutual fund investments you've been recommending. And I started to kind of mentally look around the office, right? I saw guys that were younger, I saw guys that were older, even guys that have been working there since the late 1970s. And yet they were still there hustling away, trying to make money so they could retire. And I said, none. There's your problem, Chris. All right, well, give me the answer. Chris, I don't know if you were going to be open to the answer. I said, give me something. And so he took me down this path, got me to open my eyes to seeing things from a different light. Instead of this accumulation mindset, like I'll talk about in a bit, is more about acceleration and passive income. And the crazy thing is, that's how later that year I quit being a financial advisor because I could either put blinders on and just keep selling the same crap and keep going down that same path that I know hasn't worked for anybody really, or I keep my integrity and kind of had an integrity crisis at that point, keep my integrity and leave. And so I left the business, never did it again. However, I wanted to keep learning and growing from this. And eventually, as I learned and started to figure out how to do things more creatively with my money, that's when I was able to retire when I was 28 years old. I was financially independent, had enough money that I didn't have to keep working. In fact, I kept working because I didn't know what to do with my time. That's what it means to be work optional, right? Hey, you can just keep doing your job if you want, but it's all gravy. It's all extra money that you can use to invest or do whatever you want with. So that's kind of what my story is and how it's led me to be able to teach people what I'm doing. Because of course, people like you, I mean, friends of mine would keep asking, hey, how do I do this? Like, how did you do what you did? Like, I want to do that too. And that's why in 2007, I really started teaching people how to get out of the rat race. Thing is, you got challenges, right? We've got, like I said, we've got so many issues with things in politics. We got the feds raising interest rates left and right, and they're still going. They're not stopping. They're not hardly even slowing down. We've got, businesses that are laying off, especially in the tech sector. If you're in tech business, you're worried if you're going to get laid off at some point. We're seeing banks having issues and failures. We're seeing all this stuff happening. Real estate prices coming back down. The stock market dropped over 20% last year. And even though it's coming back up a little bit, it's still predicted to go down more this next year. In fact, it's not even anywhere close to where it needs to be. In fact, the S&P 500 is double the price that it should be right now. So that means if you got money in the stock market, if it were to get back into balance, which usually it overcorrects, that means you could easily lose another 50% of your money right now. If you got monies in 401ks and IRAs and mutual funds sitting there right now. And what do you think that does to people? What do you think that did to people like my dad, where we had Y2K that wiped out some money? And then right when it came back again, just came up right to where it was at the high of 2007 in October, boom, it starts crashing again. And then people lost, again, half that money. It took most people from the year 2000, if they just had money sitting there in an IRA or a 401k and they didn't add any money to it, from 2000, it took them to at least 2015 before I started hearing clients say, I'm finally back to where I was. 15 years. And yet we got inflation going crazy too, where that means it's really only about worth half. So you still lost 50% after 15 years being in the stupid stock market. If you're wondering if I'm a little bit passionate, yes, I am, because I was that financial advisor selling you that crap, believing that it actually worked, and it doesn't. Okay, simple enough. That's the problem. The only way to freedom, the only way to do it is to have cash flow coming in, to have more money coming in than what's going out. That's the key. You have more than enough to live within your means, right? In fact, you're doing great, and you don't have to live on rice and beans. You don't have to cut out every little thing of enjoyment in your life and not vacation anymore. You can actually enjoy your life, love it, and still live it too. Okay, but this is the key, right? Warren Buffett said it best. Harold is one of the greatest investors of all time. Now he's about to hit a century old. He says, if you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. This is why you need multiple streams of income. So here's the advice I'm going to give you right now to help you become recession resistant. This is what worked for me, especially when the last recession that I had to learn from. Remember, I went over $1 million in debt. So I can tell you there's nobody on listening to this or watching this right now that probably is any worse off financially than I was myself. I was $1 million more poor than the homeless guy in the street. I was over $1 million in debt. I was short about 15,000 or 16,000 a month, bleeding left and right, had no money, no credit, and almost no hope. The only thing that gave me hope, honestly, is that I would try to imagine you in the future. I was imagining somebody that this might help. And we're in a time right now where this is essential. And so the things that I learned were key. So getting lean is so important. If I were to give you one tip about how to get lean, is start tracking your money. Not just, well, if you're even tracking it, not just every month, track it weekly. Track it every single week. Understand how much money's coming in, how much money is going out. Once you start to track it for several months, then you can create, what people call a budget, right? I like to refer to it as a spending plan, because the truth is money is meant to be spent. If you don't spend it while you're alive, somebody will spend it when you're dead. Okay. So find ways to really track the flow of money coming in and coming out. The problem is in scarcity, people that are spenders, they only look at what they make, but ignore what they spend. But the other version of scarcity are savers. These are the people that are like Dave Ramsey advocates, right? These are the people that they're almost hoarders. This is my dad, right? Like savers look at everything they spend, but they don't focus on what they could be making either. Well, what if you could take the best of the spenders and the savers? What if you took the spenders who are willing to make more money, and that's how they keep making it, even though it's easy come, easy go, and you take a saver who's responsible with that money? What if you get somebody who can make money and responsible with money at the same time? That's why we refer to as a steward. And stewards look at both sides of the equation. They track that money. I like to use tools like Mint, like mint.com, double your pleasure, double your fun with extra double mint gum. For those that remember those commercials, that's what I mean by Mint. Mint's a great app you can use. It's run by the same people that do QuickBooks. You can use the app, or you can even use the online version. Free, completely free. And it actually helped me first dig out of my hole, right? This is also something that's helped many of our clients do it too, because I'll tell you, in 2008, when I found myself in a big old hole, I wasn't teaching people how to get out of the rat race anymore because I was in it. I can't teach something I don't do. It comes off so disingenuous and inauthentic that I can't BS it. This is why I don't play poker. Okay. So what I did instead was I taught people how to be resourceful, how to find money. And this is essential right now. You need to find that money. We had one client that she was making $250,000 a year between her and her husband's jobs, yet they were paycheck to paycheck. We started to track their money, found out they're spending $5,600 a month just eating out. That wasn't including groceries, which was over 1,000 a month. They only had, by the way, a family of 5, you know. It was not a big family. It was not like a family of 10 like mine. So in their situation, we said, listen, what if we cut back your spending to, on the eating out budget to only 1,000 a month, right? So I still gave them freedom to keep eating out, just not as much. Freed up $4,600 a month there. Actually got them to reduce their grocery bill, freed up some money there too. Got them also reduce their health insurance expenses. Got them also to do some things in saving on taxes. Between all of it, we saved them over 70,000 that year. Now, go ahead and type in the chat here. I don't want to be the one talking here, but type in the chat, like, would 70,000 a year make a difference in your life right now? Go ahead and just type Y or N, right? Yes or no. I'm just curious. I would hope so. If not, then I guess we got to raise the ante for you a little bit. But 70,000 a year from seemingly just paycheck to paycheck to now flourishing. And this was also during times that was hard for them. They were going through their own difficulties, still able to get them back again. That's the key thing. By the way, if you find yourself like in a position like me, or maybe you're just barely starting out, you just don't have even 2 nickels to rub together, maybe you're just paycheck to paycheck. I want to talk about something called the cash flow secrets, that we actually have a course for that just for you. The main things that taught me how to get myself out of that hole, that dug me out of that huge $1 million debt hole, but it's also helped hundreds of our clients free up on average about $34,000 a year, about $2,800 a month, what people are able to do without even investing. This is just freeing up cash flow totally. We've had some people take one tip and find an extra $2,000 a month doing that. I had another client where she thought she was a business owner. She thought she was too busy to do this kind of thing, to even track her money. Got her to finally do it. We actually found $1,800 a month. That's over $20,000 a year that she was able to free up. I mean, no wonder she was hustling so much. She was just trying to keep constantly burning and burning and burning, keep trying to produce income, not realizing that money was just leaking away. It's like having a bucket that you're carrying and not realizing there's a hole in the bottom of it. You just keep filling it with water and carrying it back and forth. It's like, why am I losing water? It's because you got to plug those leaks. You plug the leaks, then you become more efficient. You become more productive. And that gives you more money to invest too. So that's get lean. Get liquid. This is big right now because everybody in 2021, 2022 even, we're telling you inflation's crazy. Don't have any money on the sidelines. You got to invest everything. Put it all in the stock market. People are putting in Bitcoin, stock market, wherever they could to make it, only watch it deplete and die last year. That's because you followed the masses. By the way, if you ever follow what the mass media says, you will lose. You follow what financial advisors say, you will lose money. You follow what anybody says, your neighbor, your classmate from high school, you follow what they typically say. Now, if you're my classmate from high school, I hope you listen to some of the things I say. You can take it with a grain of salt, but at least listen to what I say at least. But you know what I mean? Like people that really don't have a lot of financial experience. And then of course, you end up losing it. And I even mean financial advisors don't have financial experience. They don't have investing experience. They don't have financial freedom experience. If you're going to learn from somebody who's actually been there, done that, and still doing it today. That's essential. So get liquid means having money available, getting that money, really out of prison is what I like to say, right? Think about it. All financial advice is talking about getting your money into prison. 401ks. You throw it in your company 401k. Can you get it whenever you want? No. Even if you try to get access to it, they say, well, you can borrow it, and pay yourself interest and things like that. But you can only borrow so much. But once you put it in there, it's locked up. It's out of your life, right? I mean, even banks, when you try to get a mortgage loan, they don't count that as liquid assets because they know it's not, and not to mention if the market goes down, well, great. Now you have even less money you can access. So be careful of that. Also putting money in your house, equity in your house. I made that mistake before the last recession. That's one of my biggest mistakes I made. Beyond some of the things that I did just when I was trying to buy a bunch of real estate properties for appreciation only, not for cash flow. One of the things I did is I started throwing all my money into equity in my home because I thought, if I need it, the banks will just lend it to me. That's what they've always done. I was a mortgage broker. I thought it's easy to get loans. I know because I'm a broker. No, they locked it up. By the way, just as a bonus for you guys, I actually foresee that you'll see a big credit crisis happen again. It'll start with just the bigger real estate deals like commercial real estate properties, but I'm going to see it going to the American consumer here pretty soon. They're going to start doing things like probably cutting down your lines of credit, restricting access to those things. You're going to start seeing them getting more tight on letting you have access to money. This is why you need to have money outside. This could be sitting in savings. It could be sitting in, like I talk about infinite banking. You could put it in there. So at least you make more than point nothing percent and it's tax free, right? There's different ways to do it, but just get it in your possession, in your power. Yeah, it's crazy. I just thought of this experience here, but we had a Canadian client that we worked with, and they have what's called the equivalent of IRAs in the US, or, or 401ks, or RSP, right? Their own retirement system that they have there. And with them, they had the money tied up there. And I said, you know what? You have no emergency fund. You have no money in case of emergencies. By the way, I recommend right now with this time, and this you want to make sure you write down, I recommend at least 6 to 12 months of savings, not just 3 to 6 months like everybody recommends. I say at least 6 to 12 months, leaning more towards 12 months of expenses. So if you're spending $6,000 a month, times that by 12, you want about $70,000 liquid just for emergencies. And yes, I know the bank pays you nothing. There are ways to do it better. There are ways, places you can put it that are better, like infinite banking, like I mentioned, or even some high yield savings accounts that are out there today. There are ways to still get better than 0.1%, 0.2% in your bank. So that's a big recommendation there, is to have more liquid reserves just in case. You just never know. We don't, heck, with COVID, we never saw that we'd have people being shut down for 2 months in some cases. Some of our clients had, practices, dental or chiropractic practices, that they couldn't reopen for a couple months. There's jobs, there's people that got furloughed. I had a client that we actually started working together just at the beginning of 2020, got furloughed for a year and a half, almost 2 years. And luckily, we were able to get some money liquid out that we're able to then invest. And that helped weather the storm, that he was able to still pay for his expenses while they're trying to decide whether to bring him back on again. And so now that he's making money in his job again, great. That's now gravy, just like I mentioned before. So getting liquid, make sure that money's liquid and available for you to use, right? And then get out, right? This is what I mean by, many times we have clients that come to us and they'll have situations where they might have old 401ks or IRAs that they have, right? Now the current company 401ks, you can't do anything with that really, but old money that's been in those accounts are sitting around there, and maybe they're making money, maybe they're not in the stock market. You got money sitting in savings, sitting on the sidelines, maybe not doing everything. You got maybe equity in your home, not doing anything. What if that money could come out of those areas and invest somewhere better, where it's protected in the sense that it has real assets that you're invested in, and it pays you on a monthly or quarterly basis, on a regular, predictable basis? That's a big thing. And I want to talk about that right now. So here's ways to create those multiple streams of income. All right. I'm just going to kind of go through these options. There's a lot of them here, and there's even more, right? But I'm just kind of put these in general categories right now. Different passive investments you can do. Turnkey rentals. These are rentals that you're not property managing. You have somebody that helps you find the property anywhere in the country. Because just so you know, I live in Utah. I wouldn't buy anything in the western half of the country right now. Like I don't see anything good in the western half of the United States. We get out east of like Texas and Oklahoma, you get out east of there, especially in the Midwest to Southeast, much better opportunities, better prices, better rents, and that's what you want. You want positive cash flow. You want profits. If you're going to do this as manager, you want to make sure you actually have money coming back. So they help you find the property, help you buy the property, if you have to get a mortgage or not, it's up to you. And then third, then they property manage it for you so that you are hands off. Now you still have to manage the property manager, right? You still have to be a responsible steward here. You can't just turn your brain off and hope that everything works out. You got to still actively manage them in a sense, but you're spending like minutes a month to do that. And I have multiple turnkey properties that I have, and they've done amazing. Now there's no guarantee here, right? I mean, right now they're not as good. And many people ask, well, real estate isn't that bad right now? Yeah, in some areas they are. Like Utah, I mean, they're so overpriced right now. They're predicted to be one of the worst hit markets. We've got other areas like in the California, they're predicted the same thing. Phoenix is getting hit. We've got the typical places that everybody had in the news about booming are now busting. That's fine. I don't care, because I'm not investing in those places. I'm investing in the boring places, the places that the media doesn't talk about. And those places are profitable. Now, I may not be making like 10, 12% plus cash and cash returns on new properties right now. Maybe it's like 6%, 7%, but that's still better than losing 50% in the stock market, right? And that's also investing in a real asset that holds value. Even if the values go down, and then this is one of the things I mentioned before in my post, is that even if values go down, I don't care, Because the one thing I wish I would have learned before the last recession is that it's not about the values, like how much the property is worth, even though it's good to have a buffer when you put a down payment. But it's most important about what does it pay you. One mistake I made in the last recession is that I had some properties that I was paying out of pocket like $400, $500 a month out of pocket. They were, of course, in Utah, right? The rents weren't enough to cover my mortgage payment. And so as a result, when crap started hitting the fan, I'm trying to figure out how to unload the property. And of course, it made it hard because the banks got tight again. It was really hard to sell it. Luckily, I was able to sell out of one of my investment properties with not really much money out of pocket after that. But still, I was in the hole $500 a month. I mean, that's just ridiculous. I'd rather be positive $500 a month. Just so you know, most turnkey properties I have right now, even if I want to look to sell them because they've made some value, still the cash flows are still strong. I mean, I've got one property that's paid me 300% in the last 5 years. I got another property that's paid me about 150% in the last 3 years. So, and that's if you include equity that's gained from them paying down my mortgage payment. That includes equity gained from appreciation, even though it hasn't really happened much in the last year. There's been pretty flat, and that's including the cash flows. Even if you take out if you just include this, the cash flows and the fact that the renters pay down my mortgage for me, I usually make at least 15 to 20% plus a year. You do the math on that, that ends up being pretty crazy. Those numbers, for many people, think it's too good to be true. But I would pose this question: is it? Because you can use Google all you want. Look up millionaires and see what they're investing in. And you'll see almost 100% of the time, real estate's a part of it. Doesn't mean it's all of it, but real estate's a part of that portfolio because it keeps value and it can pay you too. So I like to go with evidence, right? That's the one reason I left being a financial advisor is there was no real evidence. We were always based on theory. We're always telling people, if you make this, if you make that, but there's no guarantees, then you might have X amount of dollars. But the rate of return of the stock market's only been 7.6% in the last 30 years. That's the average actual yield. That's the S&P, which outperforms almost every fund. I just did a podcast recording that's going to come out in a few weeks on Fidelity. Fidelity's funds, even the target date funds, have only been averaging, if you start factoring in fees coming out, they're not averaging much. In fact, they were 2% below, actually below the return of the stock market in the last 10 years, 2% per year below. And you got the 0.75% fees, which means if you're trying to figure out based on averages of the stock market, you better only be running like 5.25% return. If you ever put into a financial calculator, that's barely what real inflation is, which is right about at least 5% a year. If you're looking at the real numbers, not the government, produced crap that you see out there. So anyways, I don't want to get too off topic here, but the truth is that it's just not working. That's why people aren't retiring with mutual funds. Whatever you save in a 401k per year is what you're going to be able to live on after inflation per year. You max fund your 401k $20,000 a year. Guess what? You're going to be living on a $20,000 a year lifestyle after inflation. That's how the numbers play out. That's the reality. That's what we're seeing already happen with the baby boomers right now. And now into the older generation, now the Generation Xers, my generation, as we're starting to move into our late 50s, are seeing the same thing. It's been happening. Real estate has actually been proven to work, and it works better if you do it right. The crazy thing is people have done it accidentally and still made it work. What if you could do it intentionally with real guidance and a right knowledge and a community around you? That's important. So turnkey rental has been one of the mainstays that's worked for me greatly. Lending or notes, you can actually lend your money like you're the bank. Can you imagine right now with interest rates skyrocketing at banks? Do you think there's people out there, investors even, that say, I would rather borrow from somebody privately, pay them back versus having to pay a bank super high interest rates? Yep. The crazy thing is they'll still pay you more interest, especially if it doesn't have all the red tape you have to go through with banks. If they can get money quickly and they can close on a property and move things, they'll pay you double-digit returns a lot of times. 10% plus is very common in the lending space right now. And so we've got people that have done that. Funds, we have one fund that we advertise on our podcast. If you listen to that Apple, iTunes version, you'll hear on the audio version that we advertise one particular company that they've averaged right around 10% or so per year. And by them doing the lending to multiple people. So you're not just relying on one person, make sure that they do it right. They're lending to like over 350 different investors at the same time. And then they pay them the money back and then you get the profits. So there are funds out there that are not mutual funds and they're not REITs, real estate investment trusts, REITs, not those at all. Those are suck, but actual funds that you can do that. There's lots of funds you can go into, even buy into different types of apartments and self-storage and things of that nature, which by the way, apartments and self-storage. Or you can also do it individually. You can actually pool your money with other people and go into a specific apartment complex. I'll say this, apartments right now are very tough to find. So that's the part that you're going to see hearing more news about it crashing. Here's a big tip I'm going to give you. If you want to get that Joseph Kennedy type of benefit to your wealth, is when everybody starts screaming, running away, run towards it. We haven't quite heard that yet because right now they're wondering how people are going to be able to refinance with higher rates. And so there's a lot of real estate investors in trouble right now with commercial real estate, especially office buildings, but even so with apartment buildings. And you start to hear people say, oh my goodness, it's crashing right now. Real estate's horrible, especially the apartment building space. That is your moment to pull the trigger. That's the moment. If you know the right people and you have the right connections, the right team, you'll actually find the right deals, and they'll be at the exact right time. Because when everybody's running away, that's when you run towards it. It's kind of what Warren Buffett says: when there's blood in the streets, that's when he gets greedy, right? I like to think of it as like Avengers, the Battle of New York, right? Because I'm kind of a movie buff, especially with superheroes. The Avengers, they were running towards the aliens where they're coming from. They were trying to fight the aliens while everybody else was running away, vacating the area. They were running towards the action. I, as an investor, run towards the action when everybody's running away because that's when you can buy it cheap. That's when you make the most money. That is how you will prosper during this recession. That, if you remember nothing else, aside from a few other key points, that's another big one to really plant in your brain. Self-storage is one that I see coming up right now. Prices are actually coming down for self-storage, which creates opportunity when people sell it to these other investors that they operate and do this stuff for you. Here's the great thing, guys. What I'm talking about here are actually passive investments. I'm not talking about you doing these things. I'm not talking about you trying to go and renovate properties yourself. I'm not talking about you managing properties. You don't even have to find these apartments or the self-storage buildings or anything like that. These are people that have already been in this space for years, already doing it. They're just allowing to raise capital to go in together to be able to be a partnership and invest in that, and you can get the benefits from it. Oil or mineral rights. Heck, if you have to pay more at the gas pump, why not make more money off of it? My wife and I have got money in that too. I mean, we got money in lots of these places already, but that's one that's been doing really well right now. And again, you don't hear people talking about it. Why? Because it's after it becomes hot, that's when the media picks up on it. And after it's hot, that's when you know it's not. So once the media says it's hot, that's when you know it's the time to get out of it. But oil right now, it's like everybody keeps poo-pooing all over oil. But the truth is that even with EV and all the cars that are electric and stuff, it doesn't matter because all of our products, plastic, are made of these things. We still need to heat our homes with natural gas, which is a clean energy, and that all comes from the same thing. Why not get paid off of that and even the land lease as well? So you get paid from the land rent and you get paid from the drilling that you get from those products. And then there's partnerships. One of my best investments right now is actually a partnership. It's actually, we're buying and selling raw land together. I'm financing it. They're doing all the work. And I've been getting paid roughly about 35%, even if you include some of the business expenses that we've had, 35% a year on that money. So it keeps increasing as it goes along. So those are some of the things you do. How does this apply? Let's talk about how they're doing it. I remember one of my clients here, Henry. I mean, he was living in California, and he had his home and he had investment property. His goal was to pay it off in 6 years and be debt free. I said, all right, Henry, how much will you save? He said $4,200 a month. I said, okay, cool. Well, let's look at this investment property. You have $700,000 of equity in this property. What if we sold that property, get the equity out, move it tax free into other properties, and that starts paying you about $70,000 a year, 10%. And he said, yeah, but I don't know. My wife really loves this property. So it took a few years. Finally convinced them. They said, all right, we're going to do it this year. This is like in 2022. 700,000, you can then move tax-free into other properties, making 70,000 a year. Here's the crazy thing. That property was only paying him $200 a month, 200 a month. So going from 2,400 a year to 70,000 a year alone was huge. Remember, if he waited 6 years to pay all these things off, he would only free up $4,200 a month. Already there at 70,000, that's about 6,000 a month. And then we had other money we could pull out from equity from his home, invest that. Actually, we get him to about 100,000 a year after 6 years versus just $4,200 a month after 6 years. So that's a big difference there. Another one right here with this couple, they freed up $3,800 a month by paying off loan payments, certain loans. Like we have an actual index, a little equation formula that we use to figure out which loans pay off and which ones not to. Well, before we wanted to invest, that's their initial intention. We said, well, if we refinance this mortgage and do a few things here, we'll free up $3,800 a month before we even invest a dollar. So let's do that. Let's free up, about 45,000 a year first, and then we start investing that money. If they decide to finally sell off the rest of their Meta and Google stock and things like that, they can actually get their passive income well over $500,000 a year. It's crazy. Here's another one right here. This is somebody I'm working with right now. They have a first mortgage that's at 2.875% because they got in at the low. And they have, I said 8.5 years. I got to fix this to be 10 years here. That's 10 years left when you factor in the real payment that she's paying. 10 years left, and then another 10 years on that second mortgage. So 10 years, she could be debt free. It'll free up about $1147 a month. So we wondered, like, should we refinance this or not? Well, we ran the numbers, figured out she's got some equity in this property we can actually use to invest. Guess what? For only $400 more a month, even though it raises the interest rate to 6.375. And by the way, we're locking in a little bit lower than that. So I'm actually, this is actually a conservative number now. This is actually it's actually better than this. Her payment's only $400 more a month, but she gets this $120,000 that she can make $1,000 a month off of, which gives her a $600 a month net gain from no money out of her pocket, just using the equity. By the way, we already freed up roughly about $600, $700 a month just from things from her paycheck stubs and things like that, that money was leaking out. So in 10 years, guess what? That total cash flow with the rents and everything else, even conservatively, $153,000 that she'll make on that. She'll have, more than $100,000 of gains above and beyond, and even $700,000 or more of gains just by not paying off her mortgage early, but actually, doing this kind of strategy. Another client here with this woman, she decided to take some of her $650,000. Some of it went to oil investments. She's getting paid over $32,000 a year. She also has money in some debt funds, like we talked about there, like lending, that kind of stuff, making money there, as well as another real estate fund, $76,000 a year, over $6,000 a month just from the $650,000. Think about this, guys. Like, that's pretty incredible. But do the math here. If you have even $250,000, if that makes 10%, that's making you $25,000 a year. This is what I mean by letting it not just get liquid, but then getting that money out and getting it working for you, creating passive income. That, just think about what that does for you, right? This other client as well, they had about $270,000 in savings, helped them refinance a home, pay off a lease with a few, really almost like a few $1,000s left on a lease we could pay off, and we get $48,000 a year with this person as well. Think about this. Like, even if they get laid off, do you think this cash flow will help them by having these multiple streams of passive income that work while they sleep, right? That's the key here, is that even if you get laid off, if you've got streams of income coming in, this gives you time. This is like Louis, when he was on my podcast, he works for Hollywood, right? Well, during that time, Hollywood was locked up, bigger than almost any industry at that point. Well, by the time it started to open back up again, there's a lot of crappy jobs being offered. He was able to pick and choose the best jobs. He said, you know what? I don't want to be on that project. I don't like that one. That will just kill my soul. I'm going to wait for the better opportunity. And he did. And that's where he made more money. Jared here, he was a rancher, got him to refinance his property, got some money out. He's got money going to oil. He's got, some short-term lending going on. He's even got a development partner he's working with as well. He bought some turnkey properties and other, he even did some of his own investing outside of the network that we have to provide. And he's now went from just really like as a farmer being like really paycheck to paycheck some of those years, like kind of like feast or famine, depending on the, the slaughter and all that kind of stuff, to now having like 20,000 a month almost, right? On average. Huge thing. And by the way, his goal was 100,000 a year. So we doubled it. I shared this one actually on a podcast here. This is not my person, but I took actually a financial advisor, a friend that I know, took his attorney client's example and put it into my own, because this is what he's doing with the client. This client has 400,000 a year they're making. They have 1.7 million in IRA, 350,000 in savings. So they got a lot. They've actually been beating. They're saying the average 401k right now, the balance is $103,900. There are only, at this point with Fidelity, they said there were only 299,000 people that are 401k millionaires that have at least $1 million or more. Even their IRAs, they found out there's only about 200,000 of millionaires in IRAs. Think about it, guys. With Fidelity, that's one of the biggest companies out there. I would venture to guess they have at least 100 million clients, right? 100 million clients. And you're telling me there's only a matter of a few 100,000 people that actually have at least $1 million after decades of savings. If that's not evidence that this isn't working, what is? Well, this guy is actually one of the people that has a million plus, right? He wants, of course, to have passive income 180,000 a year. Well, to do that, it would be dang tough because by age 65, doing even at 8%, which is more than generous with the with that kind of thing, he'd only have $2.8 million after inflation. 2.8 million after inflation. When you think about lifestyle, you're only supposed to live on 3%. 3% of that 2.8 million, just so you know, guys, is about $85,000 a year. Not even close to 180,000 that he needs. He still has a savings account and everything else, but again, he just doesn't have enough. With no inflation, he could retire at 67 and a half, but we know there's going to be inflation. Otherwise, he either has to save. Here's what the three choices he has: save 350,000 a year, which is not going to happen. He has to increase his ROI to 16%, which is definitely not going to happen in the stock market. Or he does what most people do, which is wait. And you can wait till age 88 to finally hit that number. Or what he's probably going to do is probably by his 70s say, I'm probably not going to live long enough anyways. I can pull out more than what I'm supposed to. That's what most people are doing right now. Here's what ours does. Our way, if he just makes even 10%, and there's certain types of funds that contractually pay 10%, some pay more. We had one client actually recently said he's making between 12 and 13% on average on his ROI right now. Again, not guaranteed. You could lose money too. All that stuff can happen, but we've definitely got better evidence than what the stock market has. So anyways, at 10%, even 5.8 million, that's 3.4 million after taxes. What does that mean? That means he's actually able, because he's getting 10% a year off of that, and that's actual income, not even touching his principal. He's making 340,000 a year after inflation, right? That's after 10 years, or almost 10 years there, or a little over 10 years. Here's the crazy thing. Even if there's no inflation, he could retire really this year, about age 55 and a half, after a 10% penalty, because you get penalized. Or with 5% inflation, he has to wait another 6 months. So, because you retire so quickly, you hit that goal so fast. I mean, think about it. He's got, like I said before, he's got, what did I say here? Oh yeah, there you go. 1.7 million already at 10%, 1.7 million. He can make $170,000. All he needs is an extra $10,000 a year. That's an extra $100,000. He could probably take that out of savings, take another 100,000, invest it, and voila, he's got 180,000 a year. Boom, done. I mentioned Dan here. He's actually talked about, he went from having his $1 million in his retirement accounts to getting that to generate 11,000 a month. If you want 100,000 cash flow goal in 10 years, mutual fund at 7%, you need to save $19,400 a month to do that, especially when you factor in inflation. If your investment happens to pay you 10%, well, now you're down about 5,000. But if that investment's at 12%, which some investments can do better than that, especially if they have a growth component like those turnkey rentals and whatnot, 3,700 a month. What would you rather do? 3,700 a month to retire in 10 years, or 19,000, almost 20,000 a month? Kind of hard to pick. I know. You guys tell me what you want. So, all right, I'm going to open this up for questions right now, because I know we've gone a pretty good amount of time here. So let's see what questions you guys have so far for me. I'm seeing some heck yes from Johnny here. I'd love to hear what questions you have. What's kind of coming up? What do you feel like you need to still have to help you feel comfortable in this recession right now? Oh, by the way, I just noticed here, while you guys are putting in those questions, I mentioned before about cash flow secrets, right? Like if you are paycheck to paycheck, and this might be the question, like, what if I don't have money to invest like these other people? That easily could be doing cash flow secrets course. It's a very inexpensive course. You can find it online. She put in there right there is the moneyripples.com/cash flow dash secrets. You can actually go and find that right there. And I actually just recently recorded that, even included the whole infinite banking, how that all works, so that you can actually see how it all works together. So it's pretty cool. And like I said, those are the things that got me out of my debt hole, and it's helped hundreds of our other clients as well free up cash flow and have more money to save, therefore accelerating the amount of time, or really decreasing the amount of time it takes to save up the money so they can invest and that kind of thing. All right. Now I know there's a delay on here. If there's questions coming in, I may or may not be seeing them right now. So, all right. So I'm going to continue on with this, because it might actually answer some of the questions you have. Because you might naturally be thinking, okay, Chris, here's my problem. Like, I know that there's, I probably don't have the knowledge for this. I don't have the time. And you know what? That could be true. You may not know a lot about this because I didn't either. I was a financial advisor. I didn't know any of this stuff, right? I didn't know anything about what to do here. I wasn't even taught this. I didn't even know it existed. In fact, when my friend really got me to open my eyes, I was blown away. In fact, I was on cloud nine because when I realized, like, wait a minute, there's actually investments that could pay me that much and actually generate income for me. Because remember, my goal as a financial advisor, I had a personal goal too. I wanted at that time, this is of course right around Y2K, right? I wanted about 60,000 a year because 60,000 a year would be amazing right now. Or was back then. Right now that'd be like you having at least 125, 150,000 a year. I thought I'd be set, especially though it was in my 20s. I wanted that to be my 40-year goal. By the time I was 40, living on 60,000 a year, 5,000 a month. Well, to do that in a traditional financial plan, I'd have to save up $2 million. So I thought for sure, I'm like, oh, I got to save everything for the next 15 years. I got to just save and save and save and save and save and just do everything I can. Turn off the heat in the winter, turn off the AC in the summer, and eventually I'll scrap together enough money and I'll have enough to do this. Well, obviously that's not an easy way to do it. And I was hoping to make a lot of money as a financial advisor, ironically enough, so I could have enough money to put in mutual funds to then get there. And assuming the market smiles on you just the right way over that period of time, you might even hit it. But it required so much. It was so hard. And then to find out that I didn't need that much money, I just needed that money to work harder for me by paying more cash flow. It changed my whole perspective. All of a sudden, I saw hope, right? I saw real hope when there seemed to be no hope. Liz, to answer your question for like safety because of bank volatility, should you keep your money in multiple banks? That's not a bad idea. I'm keeping the minority of my money in the banks. I keep a small percentage in the banks. I only have a few banks that I use, not a lot. I only keep a little bit of money. I keep most of my money inside my life insurance policies where it's protected from lawsuits and creditors. They don't go bankrupt. It's very, very rare you ever hear an insurance company go bankrupt. And even if they do, reinsurance companies insure insurance companies. Believe it or not, insurance companies buy insurance too to protect themselves. So if they ever go defunct, then the reinsurance companies step in, keep all of your cash 100% protected, your death benefit, everything. So if you design the right kind of policy, don't just buy any crappy life insurance policy from the next insurance agent with the big belly, it's too short of a tie, or the polo shirts and all that kind of stuff, or too slick of a suit. Notice I don't wear a suit, right? I barely wear t-shirts. Heck, I'm just so you know, I am wearing pants. Even though you can't tell, I am wearing pants. You're welcome. But yeah, I mean, those kind of things you can actually save up and do a lot of good there. CDs aren't paying too bad right now. If you keep money at a bank, just know that they are locked up a little bit and there's a penalty. There's an interest penalty if you take it out too early. So it's not exactly liquid, but if you have a longer term time frame, you could do it that way. But usually I don't keep money there because I still get taxed on that money. I like to keep my money tax free, protected, making more than 0.0%. I can usually make at least 5 or 6% a year on my life insurance. So that's where I usually keep it. All right. So let me just get into and kind of finish up a little bit here. And then obviously if you have questions, you can always reach out to us through the moneyripples.com website. You can ask us questions there. You can shoot an email, info@moneyripples.com. But let's just kind of, go beyond the questions here, right? Because here's what really has to happen in your life. Is one, you need to know how to save or invest your money. You're right. You got to know how to do it. There's a right way and there's a wrong way. If you're following our podcast, I invite you to do that. It's free. You can do that on YouTube. You can do it on iTunes or wherever you consume content. I keep them very short. We even have other videos that we do in addition. So on several topics, we got literally hundreds of videos, most of them like 10 to 20, 25 minutes long, just depending on the video. Tons of those there you can find on YouTube and places like that on our Money Ripples channel. There's a lot of how-to on that. Now, if you want to get more to the point of changing your mindset, this does have to change too. I actually recommend if you're still having a hard time breaking free of that typical traditional financial advice mentality, the Dave Ramsey type of mentality, I would recommend doing that. You got to change your money out of that accumulation mindset and into an acceleration mindset. Understand, this is key. The mindset around money, what's been taught to financial advisors and by financial advisors, and even including the media and the talking heads, the financial experts out there today, they're all taught from the companies like Fidelity, like the Goldman Sachs, the Merrill Lynch's, all those companies are teaching that stuff down the line to teach to you. Why? Because they want you to put your money with them, lock it up there forever so that they can take guaranteed fees, guaranteed cash flow from you for the rest of your life. That's what they tell you, to live on less than the interest. One, so you don't run out of money, but two, they keep increasing their revenue, which impresses their shareholders. So their stock shareholders say, thank you very much. I keep making money because you guys are dumb enough to believe us. And I'm not saying you're dumb. I'm just saying, if anything, you've been taught and trained just like I was as a financial advisor who was in that business for 4 years, taught and trained to just do everything that everybody else was doing. The truth is, if you want to have extraordinary results, you cannot live on ordinary advice. That is essential. So you got to change your mindset about money, around your money, and do what's right for you and your family. I can't tell you how amazing it is to have that kind of freedom, that flexibility in my life, right? It was not there always. I did not always have that kind of life. There was times that I was paycheck to paycheck or even less than paycheck to paycheck. And I'll tell you though, man, it is so much more liberating. It doesn't mean that financial problems go away. You still have things to solve, right? Financial literacy really requires you to become more intelligent with money as your stewardship increases. But I'll tell you that the freedom that it brings me and my family is huge. And I want to pass that on from generation to generation. That's why our company's called Money Ripples. It's that ripple effect, right? You teach it to your children teach it to their children, and you create a different life than what you were taught, right? Than I was taught. My dad, like bless his heart, he lived longer than he expected. He's trying to every dollar he can because of what happened, because he trusted the traditional financial advice. He did an amazing job. He knocked it out of the park based on traditional path, but it wasn't enough. It's not at a point where he feels free. You, at this point, have that option. You have that decision. Will you do what's right for you and your family, or are you going to do what's maybe right for the financial advisor's family, or what's working for the financial institutions that are teaching this stuff? You can break free of that, and you can create a ripple effect of your own. My ripple effect is, I know I don't have to be here doing any of this stuff. I don't even have to do this. In fact, I'm supposed to be flying to Puerto Rico right now. I actually canceled the trip as we're having movers moving our stuff back in our basement after flooding. But, I got to make that choice, right? And I'm telling you that the reason I do this, even though there's things I could be doing elsewhere that I guarantee my wife would love my honey-do list to get done. The reason I do it is because I care about you guys. I'm so pissed at how it's been taught, how money has been taught for the last several decades, and it hasn't worked. This is what made me feel like I was a liar and a deceiver as a financial advisor. This is why I'm the anti-financial advisor now. I don't want that to be your life. I don't want it to be you at all. I want you to make a different path, and I want you to create your own ripple effect. That's the vision I really had. I remember the big vision for my life, and when I created Money Ripples over 10 years ago, is I remember I was out for a jog. I was thinking about what to call this company, right? I knew that I was gonna be creating a new one. I just didn't know what it was. And I was going out, I was remembering one of the clients, we helped free up $6,000 a month, not even investing, just freeing up the cash flow, paid off some of their loans, able to give him some room to breathe because he was working 6 days a week in his chiropractic practice, would not stop. He could not stop. He didn't feel like he could afford to stop and take the time with his family. They didn't have a father. She didn't have a husband. All of a sudden, we freed up 6,000 a month. The first month, he bought a four-wheeler. Now, Dave Ramsey would have been pissed, right? He would have said, that's stupid. That's dumb. Don't do that. I knew it was better because his wife confirmed it. She said, you know what, Chris, that four-wheeler was the best investment we could have made with that money, because now he's taking off Saturdays. Now he's even getting off early on Fridays. He's working about 4.5 days a week. We're able to have weekends together as a family. We go four-wheeling now every weekend. He goes four-wheeling with the kids. He's with his kids. My kids got their father back, and I got my husband back. And that means everything to us. And that moment, the name popped in my head, Money Ripples. That is when I knew this is what the ripple effect I want to create, is that ripple effect. Imagine what happens in their own life as a family and their children's lives, and how they can change the whole destiny of their children's future because of that. And on top of that, what does that do for the community where they're more free? Which, by the way, I see them on Facebook now. They are definitely living a much better life than they were back then. But be able to see them have that freedom, the impact they have on the community and ultimately across the world. That is a ripple effect I'm here to create, of freedom and prosperity now and later, beyond my own lifetime. That is why we want 1,000 plus of you financially independent by the year 2030. That's why I'm doing this, because I can't just sit back and live a comfortable life and let something that I believe that God has given me as a real blessing in my life to just pass on by. That's why I'm here for you guys here, is to do this very thing. So, guys, anyways, like I said, you've got questions, you can always reach out to us, moneyripples.com. Love to be able to serve you any way possible. I challenge you to do this. If you have even some money, like if you're just paycheck to paycheck and you don't know, have any cash, Cash Flow Secrets is your course. If, however, you've got maybe some cash wondering, how do I get it working for me? Go to our website, moneyripples.com, try out our free passive income calculator, figure out how much passive income you can create in the next 12 months. It's actually my brain put into a calculator with what I see and where there's resources and how you can turn it into actual passive income. So I would challenge you to do that right now. Spend your lunchtime or whatever it is might be. Go and use that passive income calculator on moneyripples.com right now. Heck, if you get a number more than about 15, 20,000 bucks, you should probably be talking to one of our cash flow consultants, which will offer you complimentary, no charge. So again, no risk, no charge there. Love to see how we can best serve you and get you getting your money working for you today, so you have to work so hard for money. Guys, make it a great day. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you.